Before the Russos became household names, they were TV comedy directors. They worked on Arrested Development, that brilliant show about a dysfunctional family that got canceled and then became a Netflix cult classic. They even won an Emmy for it. But the real magic happened on Community. Remember Community? The show about a study group at a community college that somehow became one of the most creative shows on television? The Russos directed these insane paintball episodes, where the entire campus turned into a Western gunfight, then an action movie parody. Students were diving behind desks, military-style tactics were deployed, and somehow it all worked. The episodes were funny, visually stunning, and managed to juggle like 12 different characters all at once. Kevin Feige binged those Community episodes and practically jumped out of his seat. Think about that for a second. The future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was decided by watching Joel McHale pretend to shoot paintballs. And here's what's crazy. It worked perfectly. When the Russos got the call to direct Captain America: The Winter Soldier, they weren't being asked to reinvent the wheel. They were being asked to make it spin faster. Marvel had already built the machine. Robert Downey Jr. was already Tony Stark. Chris Evans was already Captain America. The characters existed. The world was established, and Kevin Feige was the conductor, making sure everything stayed on track. All the Russos had to do was what they'd always been good at: take existing elements and make them absolutely electric. And boy, did they deliver. The Winter Soldier wasn't just another superhero. It was a 1970s paranoid thriller disguised as a superhero movie. Think 3 Days of the Condor, but with a guy who throws a shield that defies physics. Remember that elevator fight scene? The one where Cap was trapped in an elevator with like 8 Hydra agents and you could feel the tension building? That wasn't just action. That was psychological warfare. You knew something was coming, but when it hit like a freight train. Or the highway chase scene with the Winter Soldier. Practical effects, real stunts, and that moment where you realize Bucky was the assassin? Chef's kiss. The Russos had found their superpower. They were system maximizers. Give them established characters, a clear framework, and unlimited resources, and they could create moments that would live in pop culture forever. Let's break down exactly how good they were at this. Captain America: Civil War wasn't just a superhero movie. That was a divorce drama with superpowers. The Russos took the fundamental question, what happens when friends become enemies over principle, and scaled it to world-ending proportions. The airport battle wasn't just spectacular, it was heartbreaking because you understood everyone's motivations. Team Iron Man versus Team Cap wasn't about good versus evil, it was about two different approaches to responsibility. Avengers: Infinity War did something no blockbuster had ever attempted. It made the villain the protagonist. Thanos got more character development than most heroes in their own movies. The Russos understood that for the stakes to feel real, the threat had to feel personal and ideologically coherent. Thanos wasn't evil for evil's sake. He was genuinely trying to save the universe, just in the most horrific way possible. Avengers: Endgame was the ultimate payoff machine. Every character moment, every emotional beat, every heroic sacrifice was earned through years of storytelling. Let's pause for a second, because I need you to understand the sheer magnitude of what happened next. Avengers: Endgame made over $2.8 billion worldwide. That's not just a number. That's more than the GDP of Jamaica, enough to buy Twitter before Elon did. The population of Chicago paying $20 each to see one movie. But money doesn't capture the real impact. This was a cultural phenomenon. People were taking the day off work for opening night. Theaters were selling tickets for 3 a.m. showings. I Love You 3000 became the new Luke, I Am Your Father. The portal scene, when every hero from the past 22 films shows up to fight Thanos, was the most rewarding moment in blockbuster history. It paid off a decade of storytelling in 3 minutes of pure cinematic euphoria. The Russos had done something that seemed impossible. They stuck the landing on the biggest, most complex story ever told on film. They were on top of the world. They could write their own ticket, direct anything, create their own universe. So what did they do? They tried to prove they didn't need Marvel. and that's where everything went wrong. After Endgame,
The Russo brothers founded AGBO, their production company, named after their motto. The plan was simple: use their Marvel credibility to create original director-driven content, build their own cinematic universes, become the next big thing in Hollywood. They had backing from Netflix, Amazon, Apple. Everyone wanted the guys who'd made the biggest.
Disagreement. Every punch landed emotionally because we've been invested in these characters for years. In The Gray Man, it was just people shooting at each other because the plot says they should. But wait, I need to pause here because I'm missing something crucial. The Russos did have a massive streaming success during this period. It just wasn't as directors. Extraction, starring Chris Hemsworth, became one of Netflix's biggest action hits ever. Over 99 million households watched it in its first month. It spawned a sequel. It proved that audiences were hungry for Russo Brothers content. But here's the key: they produced it. They didn't direct it. This is actually the most important clue to understanding their post-Marvel struggle. The Russos are brilliant at system building and talent coordination, classic producer skills. They know how to assemble teams, manage complex logistics, and ensure quality control across massive productions. But creating compelling characters and emotional stakes from scratch, that's a different muscle entirely. Extraction worked because they let director Sam Hargrave, their longtime stunt coordinator, handle the ground-level storytelling, while they provided the infrastructure and oversight. They were back in their sweet spot, optimizing a system rather than creating one from nothing. It suggests their real superpower isn't Marvel-specific. It's knowing the difference between being the architect and being the builder. Which makes their last project even more baffling. Because if Extraction proved they could succeed by staying in their lane as producers and system builders, their next directorial effort was about to demonstrate what happens when they ignore that lesson. The Electric State wasn't just another mismatched project. It was like watching someone take the wrong lesson from their own success story. This one's particularly tragic because the source material is beautiful. It's based on Simon Stollenhag's illustrated novel, The Electric State. These gorgeous, melancholy paintings of a retro-futuristic American landscape, filled with abandoned robots and quiet mysteries. The book is contemplative, atmospheric, almost meditative. It tells its story through images that make you feel nostalgic for a future that never existed.
The Russos' adaptation? They turned it into Fast and Furious with robots. Fast cuts, explosions, quippy dialogue, massive action set pieces. Everything that made the source material special, the quiet moments, the subtle emotion, the sense of wonder, got buried under the Russos.